Well, good evening, everyone, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us for the third in a series of 4 community informational webinars to provide information regarding the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative. Our presentation team tonight from the Virginia Department of Education are myself, Dr. Brendan Elbon, Director of STEM and Innovation, and Justin Maffei.
My name is Justin Maffei. I'm a former grade 8 through 12 mathematics teacher and currently serve as STEM coordinator for Warren County Public Schools. I'm working on the Essential Concepts Committee with VMPI. My partner for tonight's presentation is Ray Singletary. Ray?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ray Singletary, and I'm a former grade 6 through 12 mathematics teacher, high school principal, mathematics supervisor, and currently the pre-K-12 mathematics specialist for Manassas City Public Schools. My connection to VMPI is my service as a contributing member of the communications team, and I will be leading future work around professional learning for current and future educators. And I would like to introduce Tina Mezikane, the K-12 math coordinator.
Good evening, everybody. I'm the K-12 mathematics coordinator, as Ray mentioned, at the Virginia Department of Education. We're pleased to be here tonight to share information about VMPI with you. Just to let you know, this webinar session is being live streamed. We welcome your questions and your feedback as we progress through the presentation. So please use the QR code or that tiny URL that you see on the screen. That will electronically link you to a web page where you can make your submission. We will, as a team, be keeping track of those questions as the session progresses. And at the end of the presentation, we'll try to identify some common questions that can be addressed. Some of the questions that are posted may be more suited to address in our last presentation in May, but we are very excited to hear your feedback and to look at your questions regarding the Mathematics Pathways Initiative in Virginia. We have been gathering stakeholder feedback for a while to help the VMPI team make informed decisions when we're reviewing and revising the standards of learning for mathematics. Please note, we probably won't be able to answer every question that's posed during tonight's webinar, but know that these sessions will be used to inform the work of the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative as the initiative progresses. So our next slide, we have our agenda, and if you see that we just are going to share some information briefly with you about the initiative as a whole to start out with. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the foundational concepts progressing to the development of the essential concepts, which is our focus for tonight, and then leading to more advanced concepts in high school. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about some of the options for mathematics pathways through this initiative. So we'd first like to begin by sharing some information about the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative. So as a little background and purpose, Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative is a joint initiative between the Virginia Department of Education, the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, and the Virginia Community College System. The VMPI team includes representatives from each of these 3 organizations in order to make sure we collaborate and find success with the initiative. VMPI aims to modernize and update mathematics instruction to Virginia's K-12 students to help them prepare to be life ready and succeed in their post-secondary pursuits. The Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative will maintain Virginia's rigorous mathematics instruction for all students and strives to provide all students with opportunities to receive high quality, highly relevant mathematics instruction that's tailored to their specific post-secondary goals. VMPI proposes mathematics standards in K through high school that focus on reasoning, problem solving in the real world, communication, and conceptual connections, while shifting away from an emphasis on computation and routine problem solving. Brendan, I'll turn it over to you to kind of expound a little bit further.
Very good, thank you. So the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative, it's important to note that it would still allow for student acceleration in mathematics content according to both ability and achievement. Now, decisions about how and when students take specific courses will continue to remain with the students and school divisions based on individual learning needs. The traditional high school pathway, culminating in the study of calculus and other advanced courses, are not being terminated. Additional course pathways will include engaging semester courses in statistics, data science, modeling, design, and logic, amongst others. It is very important to remember that local school divisions will continue to have plenty of flexibility to create courses that are aligned to the standards to meet the needs of all students and to provide opportunities for all students to advance through the curriculum based on their own learning needs. School divisions will also be able to offer advanced sections and acceleration through the courses. So in summary, for the implementation, acceleration of students will continue to be available. The content of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 is not being eliminated, but rather we are seeking feedback on their reorganization to support mathematics connections, applications, and content retention. This is important because stakeholder feedback is being gathered to make informed decisions when reviewing and revising the mathematics standards of learning. It is anticipated that recommendations will be brought to the Board of Education in 2023 for full implementation for the 2025-2026 school year. And over to Ray.
Thank you. While tonight's presentation centers around the essential concepts in grades 8 through 10, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about what happens to lead students to essential concepts. So let's take a few minutes to consider the foundational mathematics concepts students will experience in grades K through 7. The process begins with a collaboration between multiple stakeholders with a collective focus on considering what is essential for students to know and be able to do in mathematics. The idea begins with work and thinking about beginning with the end in mind. To do this, the team took a deep dive into essentials for students to experience success in post-secondary opportunities as well as potential careers and worked backwards from there to get the content in advanced concepts, essential concepts, and K-7 learning experiences. The work highlighted 3 major shifts. It's moving from procedural computation to students solving more non-routine problems, students becoming knowers and doers of mathematics, and building student conceptual understanding through inquiry and discovery. Tonight, we'll highlight an example of what this might look like during a class learning experience for our students. So let's look at an example of a non-routine problem. The dimensions of a walk-in closet are 6 feet by 4 feet. The floor is to be tiled. Which tile do you select? What is the cost? And why did you select this option? This problem can be explored in many different directions, but the primary focus is on students making decisions and justifying their thinking before drawing conclusions. Non-routine problems provide various entry points to the mathematics content and are learning experiences that allow for multiple solution paths. Therefore, students may enter the problem from many different directions, and there are opportunities for students to extend the experience based on their depth of knowledge about the topic. So what might be some of the decisions that students need to make? One decision might be the type of tile that will be used in the room. For example, we will choose a hexagon shape, but there are many other shapes that could be selected. Other shapes might include a square, a rectangle, or a triangle, depending on the shape the students are most familiar with. All would be okay, This invites access to allowing students the choice to leverage his or her own personal experiences. Questions that might be explored could include, how might the hexagon shape work with the room dimensions we are given? How large is one hexagon tile? How many tiles might I need? So next, let's look at the costs. Students will have to make decisions about that as well. For the cost, we might need to do some research and ask, where would I find the price of a tile? How much does the tile cost? What color does that matter? How much would I need to buy if the tile is priced per square feet? What if the tile is not exact? How might that affect my costs? So these are a few questions, but there are many more students could explore. This leads to possible extensions of the learning. So once students have interacted with the process, made decisions, and come to a conclusion, we could push the learning forward wherever there's an opportunity. An extension could be comparing the price. Questions might include, which item would be better as an option? What if I found a larger tile? Would that cost less or more? These are opportunities for our students to develop knowledge of area, perimeter, money, decimals, multiplication, addition, comparing numbers, while also providing access, sustaining inquiry, and providing space for students to justify their decisions. Through the non-routine floor tiling tasks, students are able to build an understanding of how mathematics is applied through authentic tasks. Students in this task were not just asked to find the area of the floor, but had to make choices, evaluate information, and use mathematics to find a solution. As students engage in tasks that provide multiple entry points and solution paths, students become more capable problem solvers and begin to see themselves as capable learners. Building in opportunities for making choices in the task provides ways to scaffold the task to allow entry points for students in various levels of prior understanding. Students begin to develop a deeper understanding through asking questions and discovering solutions. Now I'm going to pass it over to Justin.
Thanks, Ray. The foundations that the students will build in kindergarten through grade 7 will prepare them for essential concepts. These are the concepts and skills that all students need to build the mathematical foundation necessary for continued study of mathematics and to achieve the multiple purposes for learning mathematics. The essential concepts will incorporate much of the content that has in the past been included in grade 8, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. There are 4 big ideas which will be the guiding principles of the essential concepts courses. Investigating data will become a larger part of the curriculum than has previously been seen, as the need for statistical literacy becomes more necessary with the greater availability of data. You may see a bit of traditional algebra in modeling with functions and making sense of expressions, equations, and inequalities, and traditional geometry in reasoning with geometric figures. Though the available connections between these big ideas will be the added value of the restructuring of the concepts. In developing essential concepts, VMPI is taking a deep examinations on the math topics that are essential for a post-secondary world, and through that, we're looking at what is needed for SAT, ACT, IB, and AP, and other rigorous pathways. The VMPI team is also gathering input from higher education partners and business and industry as the development continues to ensure that content is connected in a way that meets the future needs of students. Learning mathematics is not just about learning content. It's about reasoning, problem solving, and justifying thinking in order to apply that content. The world is constantly changing. Therefore, we must prepare students to be thinkers and doers of mathematics so that they can be successful in any chosen future endeavors. The mathematics that students are learning should be reflective of the world in which they live. We are very excited about the potential connections within the content of the essential concepts. Here is an example of the connections that can be made within the content of essential concepts being proposed for the first essential concepts course in grade 8. Imagine that a student determines a question that they would like to study. The student then develops and conducts a survey in order to collect data to answer that question. The data would be graphed, and students would determine whether the data fits a model, such as a linear function. This linear function would allow students to make predictions. They could use information that they learned from geometric and algebraic transformations to understand the structure of the linear equation, which represents the linear function. Teaching concepts in isolated courses can sometimes be a challenge for students to make connections and retain information in order to master and build mathematical understanding. The slide designates the course for which the content is typically addressed in our current standards of learning. Notice how the relationships from content from various isolated courses could be connected in an essential concepts course. Engaging this content at an earlier age provides an excellent opportunity to show why the understanding of linear models are important to a student's future. The example from the previous screen could not previously be completed until Algebra 2, when students had learned all of the necessary information. However, the study of concepts has allowed a better alignment of skills that make relevant connections, which allow students to have greater retention of the knowledge and ability to transfer the knowledge to new situations. Here is an example of an activity with which students may grapple. They may look at the image and notice that the cell phone battery is almost dead, but that it's currently charging. They may wonder how long it will take for the phone to be fully charged. With additional information, students can now reason through the problem at an appropriate level. Some students may notice that the change in percent charge is always slightly higher than the change in time and use this information to estimate an answer. Other students may collect this information in a table to determine the pattern. Still others may see that they can graph the data and determine the best model of the data, whether it is a linear model, a quadratic model, an exponential model, or another model which they could explore. Once students complete their work, a class discussion about the various strategies that were taken can be effective in understanding the trajectory of learning, providing better conceptual understanding to students who are advanced procedurally, and providing more efficient procedures to students who are grasping with the conceptual understanding. Mathematics and practices in STEM should be iterative to match how these challenges appear in the real world. Students should be able to grapple with a task, try various strategies, and determine the most appropriate strategy to utilize for the current task. Tina will now discuss pathway options that currently exist and what those might look like as the Virginia Math Pathways Initiative moves forward and standards are revised. Tina?
Thank you, Justin. I feel like I need to make sure my phone is charging now. Thanks for walking us through that task. In the Virginia Public Schools, standards of learning and a framework for creating curriculum are created by the state. Local divisions then have that flexibility to create courses aligned to standards that meet the needs of all students and provide opportunities for those students to advance through the curriculum based on their learning needs. School divisions currently might do this by offering advanced courses, combining standards from more than one grade level or course, or other flexible options. So the slide that you're looking at right now shows some of the typical pathways that currently exist. And there are many other courses and sequences that are also available that aren't really shown on the slide, but we wanted to show you a few that are oftentimes common based upon our current and existing standards. So the next slide, we want to talk about the proposed approach for developing mathematics standards under the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative. The content from Math 8, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 is not being eliminated by VMPI, but rather the content of these isolated courses will be blended into a seamless progression of connected learning in the Essential Concept course sequence. During the 2023 standards review process for the K-12 Mathematics Standards of Learning, content will be reorganized to create the updated standards in the Essential Concept courses. Just as school divisions currently build courses from our current standards, courses may be developed from these updated standards that may be offered to students according to their learning needs. So on the next slide, we want to look at potential pathways for some students. Note that this is a potential pathway for some students which provides opportunities to reach rigorous advanced coursework aligned to their interests, their personal goals, and post-secondary aspirations, and which may include calculus and other current offerings. School divisions can still create courses and course names as they see fit to ensure that they reflect the content from Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and the new concepts and standards being created for the Essential Concept standards. Note that some courses are semester courses, and you can see that on the screen by the 1/2 fraction that's next to some of the courses at the bottom below the grades 11 and 12. These pathway courses may be chosen and be appropriate for students who are interested in things like engineering, calculus, design, or other post-secondary options. Students might also select these courses just as an elective course that they may wish to take over and above their mathematics requirements. So this particular slide is showing you the progression from grade 4 up through high school. So the next slide shows another potential pathway for acceleration. So here's one potential pathway that we wanted to show you, but note that that school divisions can develop programs that accelerate students in different ways. Nothing in the sample precludes a school division from creating other courses or even sections like honors or advanced, aligned to our standards, as has always been the case. These pathway courses may be chosen and be appropriate for students interested again in engineering, calculus, design, and other post-secondary options. For example, if you look at the right-handed box at the bottom, the green box at the bottom, you'll notice that this could be possibly courses a student might intend to take if they were looking at owning or running a small business. They might want to take a financial modeling class and a math modeling class, or even a quantitative reasoning course. Whereas the options in the left-hand box might be more ideal for a student who might want to work in logistics or something of that nature. So there's a lot of options being developed in the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative, and we're super excited about that part of the initiative. Students can also select any of these courses as elective courses, again, over and above their mathematics requirements. So we wanted to remind you that at our next community session, which is being held on May 25th from 6:30 to 7:30, we will have the opportunity to talk to you further about those proposed higher level math options. And as you can see on this screen, we have the whole gamut of those that we're trying to look at, which include the half credit course options that we just talked about, a few of those in the previous slide, and also our typical course offerings that students currently have the opportunity to experience. So I think that during the first and second webinars and in the weeks between the presentations, you have had access to a Google form in the community to provide your comments and feedback and to ask questions. And we've, as members of the VMPI team and BDOE, we've been monitoring those questions this evening, and we'd now like to answer a few of those. We just wanted to remind you that this form will be available through May 25th, and if your question doesn't get answered this evening, it may be because it might be more suitable for the content we're addressing in the last webinar. But we just wanted to let you know that we will continue to look at your questions and your feedback. So Shelley Pine is here. She's our VMPI communications lead, and she's going to help us with some of the questions that have been submitted regarding this evening's topic. So Shelley, can you help us identify some questions?
Absolutely. There have been a number of questions about implementation and the timeline that's involved. And so lots of people who can say, this is the year my child graduates. How does this affect them? And so that's what you're answering. My child will graduate high school in, say, 2028. When will VMPI be implemented? How does it affect my kid?
Okay, 2028. So the VMPI implementation actually is coinciding, I think, as we talked about earlier, with the revision of the mathematics standards of learning. As many of you may know, standards are revised every 7 years in Virginia, and the math standards are scheduled for revision in 2023. So once the revised standards are approved by the Board of Education, a crosswalk year ensues, which would be during the 2024-2025 school year. And that would be the year in which the revised standards would be taught in tandem with the existing 2016 math standards of learning. So full implementation is not really actually planned until 2025, 2026. So a child who's actually going to graduate in 2028 might be able to take advantage of some of the advanced pathways courses that we kind of highlighted in the slides beforehand.
Great, thank you very much. Another question that has come up a few times in people's comments and questions, so I'm just going to kind of put them together. What research supports the work of VMPI?
Sure, I'll give that one a go.
Thanks, Brendan.
So the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative, it actually supports the vision of the Standards of Learning Innovation Committee, which in 2016, I believe it was, it emphasized the development of a core set of skills in the early years of high school. And it also established multiple paths toward college and career readiness for students to follow in the later years of high school. So it's going to help with that initiative by the SOL Innovation Committee. The other thing is to remember that in 2017, the profile of a Virginia graduate described the knowledge and the skills and experiences and attributes. And it said that students must attain to be successful in college and or the workforce and to be life ready. So much of what we're doing builds into that. And a lot of the research of what we are working on is finds its basis in the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. They proposed a document in 2018 called Catalyzing Change in School Mathematics, which also further provided a research basis for the VMPI team.
I also wanted to kind of mention, Brendan, that we have been doing book studies pretty constantly on the catalyzing change in school mathematics book. So we're excited that we're able to reach out in conjunction with some of our state mathematics organizations to take a look at that as well.
Brilliant.
Absolutely, and it's available for purchase by anyone. It's not just like a math teacher book that you're not allowed to buy. So anyone listening is welcome to read it as well. There's great information in it. So the next question that I'm sort of mushing together from a couple, who is on this implementation team? Who's planning the VMPI? And are there other organizations that have provided feedback?
I guess I can take that one. So our team right now, the VMPI team, as we mentioned before, is it's a joint initiative between the VDOE and the State Council of Higher Education in Virginia and the Virginia Community College System. So when the initiative first began, very intentionally, folks from all three of those areas were put together to join together on a team to start to think about what might different pathways for mathematics look like in the state of Virginia, and to begin to develop some ideas. And those ideas, have come to stakeholders of different areas, including you all tonight, to get feedback and to really make sure that we're looking at all different angles and perspectives as we move forward in the work. Shelley, you had a second part to the question. I'm sorry.
I did. I'm wondering about who all are you talking to? You mentioned earlier, we've been working on this since 2019. Who who all have we talked to? Who is providing this feedback to the VMPI team?
Yeah, we've actually been able to hold a whole lot of meetings since the last time that we started last year. I think it was back in March, and it started right before the COVID-19 closures of the schools. So we were very fortunate that our team continued to move forward to collect feedback from stakeholders, because that was the only way that we could really continue to move forward. And that included folks like teachers, higher education faculty. We talked to special education groups, directors of gifted programs. We talked to a military liaison group that works for students of military families, governor school directors, businesses, industry. There's a whole lot, lots and lots of meetings with stakeholders. We've really been trying to listen to folks to help us as we develop the initiative and move forward. So I think that's about it.
I think that there is no stone left unturned. It sounds, the list that I'm creating in a document that I am working on is very much everyone that I can think of that has input on kids in school. So thank you for making that clear. So our next question is, how are we going to support students who need intervention or remediation? Because you spent a lot of time this evening talking about acceleration, but what about students who might need to have some intervention or remediation? How's that going to happen?
Absolutely. Let me get this one. So anytime we teach anything, be it in any subject or be it in mathematics under the existing standards or even the new standards, there will be students who on a day-to-day basis might not capture the learning that was taught. And then there will even be students who have lost learning in previous years. So each school division will continue to have the flexibility to determine how best to provide these supports. Resources and professional learning for teachers to address unfinished learning has been provided by the Department of Education Student Services, as well as the Department of Learning, and will continue to be provided as new standards are implemented. It's also important to remember that school divisions will ensure consistent identification of students, be it through formative assessment or anything else, to uncover which students have unfinished learning in mathematics, to identify who would benefit from additional support, and to strengthen and deepen their mathematical learning in order to ensure that they are ready to learn and to focus and to move on. So those practices, which is good practice in all subjects, old standards, future standards, that will need to continue, and the supports from the Department of Education will continue to be there.
Yeah, and Brendan, I just wanted to add, because it reminds me, we've done a lot of work this year on what we're calling just-in-time quick checks. They're formative assessments that we've created across the board in mathematics to help teachers identify unfinished learning. And we're really excited to have those available to teachers, because it really is a lifesaver when we think about some of the unfinished learning that might exist since last March for some of our kiddos in our classrooms. So we know that work needs to continue very much in earnest. Our teachers are working so very hard to make sure that they are identifying that unfinished learning. And we at the Virginia Department of Education, along with a lot of teachers and specialists out in the schools, helped us put those together. We have a great network of mathematics teachers and leaders across the state. And we continue to work hard to make sure that we're meeting the needs of those kiddos.
Wonderful. So let's talk about those math lovers who bring great joy to every math teacher that they've ever met. Kids that just love the math, dig what's going on, or those who are certain they're going to be a STEM professional because they just love it and they want to find all the connections for math. How will these revisions serve those children who just love mathematics and are our future STEM professionals?
I can take that one, Brendan. The VMPI is going to continue to support students who want to seek to enter those more math-intensive fields as they think about their post-secondary aspirations. We saw in some of those previous slides that had the pathways for VMPI that students are going to have a lot of opportunity to explore math through and even above calculus while they're still in high school. So there will also be some expanded opportunity for those students that might seek to enter those STEM fields that might not necessarily require calculus, but might need courses more like data science or mathematical modeling, some of those courses that we're currently developing or looking at developing. And those options might be able to provide pathways that can lead to post-secondary, STEM technical fields or some of those areas that are just growing like crazy. Even in Virginia, we have a lot of businesses that require some of those STEM technical fields where students need the math, a very high level of mathematics, but not necessarily at the calculus level, but more in terms of the statistics or data science. We also know that we've been working very hard to make some bridges with our higher education partners so that we can make sure that the transition to these new math pathways is ensuring that it's meeting those post-secondary needs in many different ways. And I know that Justin talked a lot tonight about STEM and some of the different non-routine tasks that we talked about. But STEM is really about applying knowledge, making connections between content, exploring content. So the work that we're doing in the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative is really seeks to provide those experiences to students. How can they connect content and make the learning in the classrooms be more suitable to the world that they're living in today?
Yeah, we've talked about that an awful lot about that there are children who end up not going into a field because they fear the mathematics that's in it. But through what you just said, if we can get kids these great experiences in mathematics, then they're not afraid to enter a field that it requires them to take further mathematics. And how opening this would be for students who might not have considered a STEM field, but now can because of the MPI. Thank you very much. So you have alluded to this. You've talked about calculus. We need to get there for some children. So will these essential concepts prepare my child to take calculus?
I'd love to take this simply because I, for myself as a former calculus teacher, I would say that I'm incredibly excited about the opportunity that the Virginia Mathematics Pathways and the connections provides for calculus. If you've ever studied calculus, you would know that it is the mathematical study of change, and that in calculus we make connections between analytic geometry as well as other advanced algebra concepts. And the essential concept sequence will build a much stronger baseline of knowledge and understanding for a more conceptual understanding of calculus. For me personally, taking it just a way that the essential concepts will be built through making those connections that will create a much more natural transition into calculus. And students who have these experiences will not only learn through computation and skills, but they will also be able to apply and solve problems using mathematics much better in calculus because of their experience in learning through a connected realm of mathematics. So personally, I think that calculus will be a great beneficiary of these concept connections.
And I also wanted to mention, we've talked a lot tonight about that the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative is still in development. And one of the things that we are doing as we develop the essential concepts is to talk to our higher ed partners and some of our business leaders to take a look at what is it really that students need to be successful in calculus in college, to be successful in businesses, and really trying to make sure that we are really crossing that gamut of all those areas that we want to make sure that students understand and will equip them for whatever pathways that they want to enter down. So those are things that I just wanted to reiterate that we're doing to ensure that that's happening.
Thank you. So we've talked about feedback and stakeholders and who's providing that. And there have been a couple of times that in these comments and questions recently that parents are wondering if they're allowed to, or are we going to ask them for, or can they provide feedback on the implementation of the plan? So who can take that for me?
I would be happy to do that, because the answer is absolutely. We have started this process of revising the mathematics standards of learning very early, intentionally to make sure that we are collecting stakeholder feedback. And these community meetings that we've had are a great opportunity for us to be able to do that. As we talked about earlier, many of the changes that are being proposed in the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative do coincide with that 2023 scheduled revision of the standards. And again, that full implementation in 2025, 2026. So that stakeholder collection of feedback about those changes that we're looking at for education in Virginia has just been a big piece of the work. In fact, it's been the focus of our work this year. So future changes to the standards of learning and to state education policies will still include a lot of opportunities to collect public feedback and address questions prior to any implementation. We have a very policy-driven process that we go through to revise the standards of learning, which includes many opportunities for public feedback and comment. Again, we continue to seek stakeholder feedback as we move forward, and we want to make sure that the implementation is successful. We want to meet the needs of all learners. We are listening to stakeholders, and we definitely are responding to the stakeholder feedback.
I answered a question similar to this in the last presentation, and I do want to remind folks that there are policies around all of this implementation, and so we don't just get to willy-nilly do what we wish. There's a lot of times for opportunity for you all to continue. So please know that this tiny URL remains open. The QR code continues to work, and provide us your feedback. So if we're going to start this, is there going to be a pilot of any kind of these courses, like this brand new class called data science or math modeling? How do you make sure that it's good for kids? Are you going to pilot that?
Sure, I'd like to go here. So as you mentioned, data science is the first new advanced concepts course that we are looking to develop as an option for students once they move past essential concepts. So as you said, students will be able to continue doing all of their other advanced previous options, advanced placement, dual enrollment, IB, all of those are still in place. But with all of these, we're looking to develop these new courses, which are going to provide so many more outlets for students. And you did mention the data science course. It's the first one that we are developing. We're very excited about it because we sincerely feel that it is a very necessary skill for not only for a 21st century learner, but for a citizen of today and today's world, just to be able to understand information that is being shared with them. So pilots for some of these courses are being tentatively planned, and we're looking to maybe do some in 2022, 2023. Where and how, those kinds of details I don't believe have been pinned down. However, some more additional information about piloting and these advanced courses will be shared in the next webinar on May 25th.
And I also wanted to mention, Dr. Albin, that the data science team that we have, I just wanted to do a shout out to them because it includes not only K-12 educators, but we actually have a data scientist on the team. And we just love when he shares information about the job and how the data science actually occurs. It's just so interesting. You can just watch everybody. They're just so excited to learn about it. But the enthusiasm that he shares just makes the team even more excited to do their work, and so we are super excited about the data science course. And we do continue to develop. I think the next courses we're developing are mathematical modeling and financial modeling. And again, we actually are looking at having an actuary who's going to be on that financial modeling team to help kind of make sure that everything looks authentic and is what the job of someone might do in financial modeling. So those courses are super exciting, and we're just very thrilled to be able to move forward to continue to develop those.
Okay, well, the rest of the questions that I see are either very much appropriate for the next presentation on the 25th, or I can see very clearly answered in the slides this evening. So the ones that came in before this evening have really been answered as we strove to make sure that we presented the answers to those questions as we went along. So if we can just move on to the next slide, I believe, then we can talk about what's next.
Sure. So just to give a broad overview of the VMPI implementation process, please remember that this is a process where we are looking at research, we're looking at best practices, we're looking at advice from tertiary education sources, from community college, from business, and we are doing our very best to build and create a learning platform in mathematics that will best suit all of our students. But please remember that this is not a fully defined, voted on plan yet, and it will be supported by the board in the future. But in the meantime, what we are looking to do is we are doing these webinars, and we are taking feedback from community members, because it's important to us that we take a look at your feedback as we develop it. There are multiple ways for you to give us that feedback. You can respond to the tiny URL, you can email the staff at that email address, and you will also notice that there's more ways to contact that are advertised on VMPI website. And please keep up with that just as you see how the implementation is moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Albin. So just to kind of wrap up, I hope I haven't done a spoiler tonight of what we're going to be doing on May 25th, because I just get very excited about some of those courses. But at 6:30 on May 25th, we will be talking about the higher level mathematics and advanced options in more detail. So I hope I haven't given away too many details tonight, but we certainly encourage you to continue to provide your feedback. It definitely does inform our work, and we certainly appreciate you tuning in tonight. So thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.